Welcome back. Higher Education Minister Dr. Blade Nzimande denies reports that he called for universities to increase tuition and accommodation fees. The department says only university councils, not the minister, were authorized to determine fee adjustments in accordance with the Higher Education Act. For more on this conversation, we are now joined by Veli Mbele KaSompisi, who speaks for the Department of Higher Education and Training. Veli, thank you so much for your time once again and for joining us this evening. Now, the department's statement emphasizes that the minister has no authority to determine individual university fees. Can you provide more clarity on the minister's actual role in the fee determination process?
Thank you, Oscar. Yes, like you correctly said in the insert, the minister has absolutely no authority, legally speaking, to determine the fees of any university in our country. And then that responsibility is allocated to the councils of universities in terms of the Higher Education Act, right? And that is really the situation. And so it is regrettable that there has been some misinformation that has been spread to suggest that the minister would be increasing fees for the 2024 academic year. So the actual situation is actually as follows, right? So currently there exists what we call a social compact between the department and the universities. And in terms of that social compact, the minister would annually communicate his suggested, right, fee, structure for the universities. And then the minister does this for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is that he wants to make sure that we avoid a situation where you have what we call runaway fee increases, and you have each and every university determining its own fee. But also, the primary motivation for the minister's proposal has to do with the fact that our universities have to remain accessible, especially to poor students, right? So this is really what the minister's intervention seeks to achieve. However, the final decision on what each university charges in terms of its tuition and its residence fees is a decision that is taken by the university councils, right? So that is really the context and the background, and not what was suggested, unfortunately, that it is the minister who lobbies, right? The minister does not lobby anybody. The minister simply makes recommendations in terms of what we described as the social compact. And that is the actual situation.
And where do you believe this misinformation emanates from?
There could be a number of sources or a number of reasons, and one of the things that we have come to accept as the department is that at the beginning of the year, all manner of strange things happen in the higher education space. And we also suspect that a lot of the strange things that are happening currently also perhaps have to do with the fact that we are in an election year, and in an election year, these kinds of things do happen, right? And this is why it is important that we have felt that as a department that we communicate and clarify these things proactively so that we make sure that there's absolutely no confusion, among the members of the public, but in particular that parents do not get the wrong information, because it is parents who need the right information, and they are the ones who often have to worry about where the money is going to come from to support their children. And this is why it is important for us to clarify those types of things as the department.
So you mentioned that the minister doesn't necessarily lobby the university councils with regards to how much should be charged. So how does then the minister communicate with the university regarding these fees, and what level of influence does he have with regards to the fees in terms of how they are structured?
So what the minister does in terms of his communication with the universities, so the minister usually speaks to the universities through the vice chancellors or council, right? And council, as you know, at universities is the highest decision-making body in terms of the Higher Education Act, to which we referred to earlier. So the minister would then use the available protocols that govern his communication with the vice-chancellors or council to communicate whatever he thinks is important to communicate, including issues relating to student fees. And just this week, the minister had an engagement with the vice-chancellors on a number of issues that relate to the governance of our higher education system and the role of the vice-chancellors, but also in preparation for the 2024 academic year, right? So the minister does not have to do anything extraordinary. He does not have to lobby, or he does not have to exert any type of influence, because there are established protocols that exist for his communication with the leadership of our academic institution. And our own experience is that those established protocols continue to work, and they continue to yield the desired results, both for the department and the minister.
Now, there are conflicting reports that are mentioned that proposed increases of 4.5% for tuition and 6.5% for residence fees. Can you clarify whether these figures were part of the framework provided by the minister, or if they were proposed independently by the universities?
Right. So those figures, right, the 4.5% and the 6.5% are the figures that have been proposed in the document that the minister sent to the universities. And those figures are an outcome of an elaborate and very meticulous process that involved a consultation with actuaries, but also consideration of things like the consumer price index and the guidelines that come from National Treasury, right? So while it was reduced to a letter, right, it was quite an extensive behind-the-scenes process that went into it. And the 4.5% and the 6.5% that the minister has proposed, right, is essentially meant to make sure that you equalize the sector, right? And by equalize the sector, we mean that our universities do not necessarily have the same financial muscle. And this has to do with structural and historical factors, right? And it is important to make sure that we don't have a system or a situation where some universities find themselves literally collapsing because the fee structure in the country is unregulated, right? And this is really one of the things that the minister's intervention, right, or proposal rather, seeks to avoid, where you have a complete collapse of either individual universities or the total system, because you don't have a fee, student fee regime that sort of like provides a framework. And this is the broader picture that we must understand, right? And we must not just look at the percentages necessarily, but we must understand the importance of having a higher education system wherein you don't have fee structures that are inaccessible to students or pose an existential threat to our academic institutions. That context is very important.
All right, Veli, thank you so much for your clarifications and for your time this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Veli Mbele KaSompisi, who speaks for the Department of Higher Education and Training.